Well, it's the third weekend of LCS mid-season showdown here in Spring with coverage brought to you by Alienware. I'm joined right now by Zikz from 100t after an unfortunate loss to TSM. So Zikz, obviously I know you guys were able to at least pull out the one win, but other than that it was an unfortunate 3-1 against you. So what went wrong today in the match against TSM?
I would say that the pressure definitely got to us a bit. Um, for the most part, I'd say like we had a really productive week of practice, and our last few weeks of practice have been very productive. And we've learned a lot as a team and grew a lot, especially in the early and mid game. And as most people could probably tell, our early games became very clean compared to before. Like in 3 of the games, we had at least a 2 to 3k gold lead. Our Herald rotations were a bit off. Um, but for the most part, our early games were very like clean overall. Like there wasn't many mistakes. We were accounting for variables very consistently well. Um, but when it came to like our mid game, we were getting picked on side a lot, which was a factor of the guy getting picked on side, but also our strong side not covering for them well or playing fast enough. So there was a lot of factors today, including like the team fighting and how we played out team fights that ended up swinging the game in all 3 of our games where we were ahead, where those games could easily be just we complete the snowball and are able to like snowball the game and close it. But we ended up, just making mistakes that would ultimately cost us the game in all 3 of those games.
Now, before the start of the season, I think a lot of people were placing 100t either third or fourth. And so I would say that, at least as far as the analysts go, this result matches expectations. But I'm kind of curious for you and the coaching staff, what were your hopes for spring? Obviously, I know you guys would have loved to have just won the whole thing, but given that this was such a huge change out in terms of players into the new organization, a mid-season or mid-split change in the mid lane, where were you guys hoping to land, or what was the goal at least?
When we were internally ranking our team and where we thought we would place, we also put ourselves somewhere around third, fourth. We thought that with the addition of Perks and Alfari to TL and C9, that they would be pretty strong, and that out the gate we would be a really strong team because we have pre-built synergy, and that we'll somehow probably end up around third, fourth. Our overall goal and expectation of the split is always going to be to push for first, push for a championship, and I think with this roster we had the high roll possibility that we could win the whole split. And toward the end of our practice week, like this week, we were kind of showing that, like doing pretty well against TL and C9 in scrims, and actually like having some solid games and plays where we were like really proud of ourselves. But when it came down to it, on the day, like everybody has to kind of perform to the same level of expectations. So we didn't on the day, and that's something that we're gonna have to take into next split. And I think like the first thing, we had a team talk a little bit ago. One of the first things that I said, and that everybody on the team already knew and recognized, is if this is our placing for summer, it's not going to be enough, because our goal ultimately is to make worlds. Like spring split matters, of course, but summer is going to be like weighted heavily, right? Because if you're top 3, you go to worlds, and that's like everybody's goal and what everybody on our team wants. So us finishing fourth is kind of like I don't want to say a wake up call, but it's like a clear sign that we need to do more and we need to push harder. Because without that, if we end up fourth again next split, we're going to feel 10 times worse than we do right now.
Yeah.
And we already feel pretty bad. So, you know how it is. So we just have to push as hard as we can, take away all of our learnings that we can from this split, understand where our weaknesses were, understand our team identity a bit more. I mean, realistically, we did a mid lane roster swap and still ended top 4. If you're looking at it from like an outside POV, not bad, but from our perspective, we want to push for the top 3 next split, no matter what.
Well, and it's an interesting situation because as you said, and as a lot of the analysts predicted, fourth was kind of the expectation for this team in some ways. But it feels like the narrative, the conversation, even to myself when I do shows like Hotline or whatever, it's like, oh no, what happened to 100T? And so do you think it is a situation where like there were some bumps with the roster where like performance dropped, or is it really just that you guys weren't able to scale as quickly in skill as the teams that did have Alfari and perks on them.
I mean, I think honestly a lot of our hype came from the lock-in tournament where like the meta is perfect for us. Like we have a team that was 4 people, but with like a new top laner, and our top laner is good, obviously, right? So it's like, of course, we're gonna look like sick. Like we're gonna look like we have first place material going into the split. But realistically, it's like meta changed away from our favor, put us more into control mages. That was really bad for us because Tanner was primarily like really good at like the other style. And then toward the end, it became more about like you kind of have to play both styles. Like you could be a control mage player, but you can also be like a mid fighting and like roaming style. Um, but ultimately, we felt like performance wise, Tommy was consistently doing better. So it just made sense to once we did the swap that we just stick it with Tommy. And I mean, overall, I think it was probably the right decision. I mean, I thought about the decision pretty much every week, and I was like, okay, was it the right decision? And you know, ultimately, we talked amongst ourselves as a staff, and we kept on saying that it's the right decision, something that we should continue doing. So overall, yeah, I think a lot of the hype came from the lock-in tournament and the fact that the meta was perfect, and then our bumps came from that time where the meta is no longer perfect, and the other teams like Alfari came in, for example, with like Alfari and Centaurn came in very late into lock-in, so they didn't even have much time at the beginning of the split, and then Perks as well, they came in right before lock-in. So we had a lot of pre-built synergy, and they had none. So of course, you know, the hype is going to be there because of our result, but it is what it is.
Over the next couple of weeks, I'm sure you'll be thinking about this and discussing this with your staff, but fans will be as well, pundits, etc. You know, how do you solve the issues that this team has for summer? Because if a lot of it is like, hey, you know, you guys had the synergy, these guys were able to pass eventually, you know, the meta is not the place that you guys maybe want it to be, or at least, you know, what it was in lock-in. It's kind of like, okay, well, if these were issues that led them to have issues in spring, all that's going to be around in the summer most likely. So what are you looking to do? How do you think you can solve this stuff?
So it kind of goes without saying, but we're going to be talking about that pretty much the entire off season, how we're going to resolve a lot of these issues. I mean, at the very least, what the spring has taught us is a lot of our like understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of the players and like the team as a unit, and what that means in terms of our drafting, what that means in terms of our prep, what that means in terms of like practice and mindset, like all of these different factors that go into it. So it's a lot of little things realistically. We're, you know, until I talk with my staff, I'm not going to say, yo, we're going to make some big changes or we're going to change this role or that role. Like realistically between splits, probably not much big changes, but you know, who knows? Like anything could happen.
Right.
It's off season. Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, I'll keep my ear to the ground, I guess, for any crazy rumors. But other than that, you know, I don't know if there's anything you want to say to any of the 100t's fans out there.
I mean, overall, like it was a roller coaster ride of a split, for sure. I think that one kind of goes without saying. Ultimately, like I have no regrets. I think that everything that we did had a purpose, and we as a team always played to be on the same page and talk through every decision as 5 and agree as 5. And we won as a team, we lost as a team. The 5 guys every single game or every single weekend after every single win, every single loss would go out together, spend time together. And I think that we have a lot of good to build on for next split. And yeah, just trust that we'll be the team that will push harder next split to make sure we get top 3.
Very good. Well, hey, thank you so much, Zikz, for the interview. I really do appreciate it. And for everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS right here on my YouTube channel. These days, everybody's talking about Wild Rift this, Wild Rift that. And you know what's actually wild? The amazing performance you can get with Alienware computers with NVIDIA graphics cards in them. You can go check them out over at alienware.com/Travis, and you can use Travis10 off to save 10%. Also wild that you can do that. They've got some fantastic stuff, including the Alienware M15R4. We love Alienware. Thank you so much for sponsoring my content, and we'll catch you next time.